Hello, my name is JoAnn Rolle, and I'm the Dean of the School of Business at Medgar College, City University of New York. I bring you greetings from our president, President Patricia Ramsey, the sixth president of Medgar College and the first female president in our history. I'm going to take a few minutes and talk to you about recent a book. Actually, it hasn't even been published, but it will be published this summer. And I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the book, Sustainability and the Future of Work and Entrepreneurship for the Underserved. I am the senior editor on the book, and the also editing the book with me is Micah, Crump. And I'll tell you a little more about the experience as we go along. Okay. One of the reasons for this book and some of the work that we do is what we call the equity jungle. And I like to start out several of my presentations with the jungle, showing you that often around the world, especially in developing countries, for developing countries, folks will say, well, you can do what everyone else does. But what this little animation or cartoon shows that it's the playing field is not now equal and has never been equal. You see the instructor in front of his class saying, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. And you could see that everyone doesn't have the skill set or the apparatus. The elephant would have more of a problem, and the seals and would have more of a problem than some of the other animals. And so I start off making this point saying that sometimes when we have to change the world, it may be that everybody can't get the same thing because it will not necessarily solve the problems, because we don't all start off with the same resources and issues and challenges. And so I will tell you a little bit about the work that we have done. I will tell you why we're doing this work and some of the storytelling that we're doing. And then I will share just a tad bit of the work and what I think is a voice, many voices coming forward, wanting to share their perspective that has not been heard. So let's move on. And I talk to you about storytelling and the importance of storytelling from the lens and the views and the voices of many folks around the world. And the late, great Maya Angelou, the poet and storyteller and story writer, said, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you. And many of us have stories that are yet to be told and yet to be shared. I just want to share a personal experience with you. When I was going through my doctorate program, there were not many Black women who had PhDs in economics. One of my faculty, Dr. Houchins, told me that at the time I was going through, and I'm dating myself, there were only 7 Black women in the US who had PhDs in economics. And he was my labor economist faculty member and professors. And I had been to several other schools, predominantly white institutions and other institutions, before landing at Howard, which is a historically Black college. And I would complain. I said, you're making us read so much. You're making us do so much work. And I've been to other schools and we didn't have to do some of the things you were asking us to do. And he looked at me with kindness in his eyes, as if, a teacher saying to a student. He said, but the books weren't written for us, and the books weren't written by us. And one day you may have to write a book, and you can't write the books if you haven't read the stories. So this inspired in us part of the work that we have done collaboratively around the globe with several colleagues in India, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, in Jamaica, in Chile, and in the UK, and of course, at home at Brooklyn. We're telling our story through our research and the lens that we have. And our work is, as leaders, we need to allow ourselves to experiment, to try things out and make adjustments. Leaders navigating the future of work will find themselves experiencing the uncomfortable stages of the creative process. They may also be surprised by what they discover is possible. So in our body of work, this is not just one story, but a multitude of stories of trying to solve the old problem. This is not a new problem, and this is not a US or UK or Asia or Africa problem. This is a worldwide problem of equity, of why so many people have so little and so few have so much. And we're not disparaging those that have. We're just saying we need to find new models to empower, to embrace, to inspire, to give life to a better way of living for those who need it most. And so I say to you, my colleagues, the future of work and entrepreneurship for the underserved is a struggle for humanity, worldwide income inequity. And I'm going to take you very slowly through this chart, because this chart tells the work. So what it says is the top 10% of the population in these areas are all over the globe are earning, the top 10% are earning up to 70% of the income. Now, just so you could have a picture of what this means, the 90% of us, and in some countries, 90% of the country is living on 30% of the income. And you may say, oh, that's just a developing country problem. And yes, they got problems. But my colleagues and my friends, the US and the USSR, with two different economic models, have a share of income. 10% of the populations in those countries are pushing out 50% of the income, which means 90% of us in the US are living on only 50% of the income. And so that I think shares with you that this is a problem that is being experienced by some of the richest nations and some of the poorest nations alike. And so we talk to you about the global perspectives on the future of work. We present global perspectives from diverse voices on sustainability and the future of work and entrepreneurship for the underserved. And why is it important to have a diversity of voices? It's because we see things differently based on our experiences. I hear some folks that say, I know how you feel. You don't necessarily know how I feel if you haven't lived some of the poverty and the destitute that comes from my community. You may feel for me, but you don't know what it's like to see mothers who can't feed their children and fathers who can't come home because they can't face the life that they have been able to or not able to provide to their families. So it was important to us, and it was important to us that we sought out in our call for chapters voices from around the world, as the problems are around the world, and we hope some of the solutions will be coming from around the world. So let me tell you about the process for this book. It indeed was a labor of love. I tell you, it was tough, even though we had done a volume before and we were able to, navigate some of the issues and the challenges. When we put out this call, we are contracted with the publisher, and the publisher came to us to do this book for only 15 chapters. In the first call for chapters, there were 70 abstracts. We had about 25 reviewers, but we had to triple the number of reviewers as the chapters came in. At first we thought, well, maybe, if it's 70 abstracts, we'll have maybe 30 full chapters. My friends, there were 44 full chapters. And so with all of those chapters, we had to find a way to get them reviewed. And we wanted a diversity of authors, not just a diversity of authors, but a diversity of reviewers, and with some geographic diversity. So the editorial review board process right away was in trouble. You see my colleague there, he's going through the roof. It's like how we're going to do this. And so we did all along had an administrative support person, because after we did the first book, we realized that as academicians, as scholars, that some of the administrative work was just going to be too much for us. So we brought on an administrative person, and she was, it still is, a copy editor, because you will find that one of the most desired skills and skills that you really need to have as you go through the publication process is copy editing. In fact, the publisher we are with would not allow chapters to be published unless they were professionally copy edited, and even that is some of the requirements, even with some native speakers. And so what we found, or what we have been finding as we go through the volumes of chapters that we've been sent, was that we had much good content, much good on topic. You will see we had topics on Black women and Black women in entrepreneurship, and the ecosystems and digital equity, the gig economy, green economy, pace of technology, profit after the COVID and how it impacted some of the small businesses. And that old topic of racism and classism came up, and how to help those who are in the rural communities, and growing some of the underserved businesses, even after the devastation of the worldwide pandemic. So lots of good topics. We had topics, papers come in from Chile, India, Mauritius, Mexico, Palestine, Portugal, South Africa had several, and Sub-Sahara and West Africa. And I can just say that I just recently reviewed that vocational skills in West Africa. A lot of the work that we do as academicians is about higher ed and our pedagogy in higher ed. But I will tell you, more and more the industry, and as this paper shows, is looking at what can we do in less time to bring more jobs to people faster than our higher ed system has been able to do so. So I want to say that I just wanted to talk to you about the book in general that's coming. And I didn't want to take too much of your time, but I did want to say that in this work that we do, it is so important that we don't just leave it to others to tell our stories, but that we do the serious work of the research and the giving voices from the bottom up. You know, many academic journals and academic papers you read are only read by the academicians, but there is much good work that is being done by practitioners and by those who are developing policies, and by those who are in industry. And so the call today to you, each and every one of you, is to collaborate more, not just in your discipline, but outside of your discipline, not just in your university, but with other university folks and with other community leaders, and to give voice to many stories and not just the one story that someone else is telling. And with that, I want to stop and say, please join us in this movement to help change the world and make it a better place. Thank you, and I appreciate the time with you.